My sister wasn't around anymore, and I wanted to speak for her honestly and truly and fully.
Insane and ghoulish. Charles Spencer chose those two words years before Instagram existed, and he chose them to explain something physical: why the bridge to his sister's island came down and why it was never rebuilt. The lake was a buffer. The mud was the second line of defense. Both were aimed at anyone who might try to reach Diana's body. Then, on the 23rd of July, a photograph taken on that island reached 9 million followers, and by nightfall, his phrase had been turned on the woman who posted it. Which leaves one question worth the next 20 minutes. Did Spencer give permission? 4 attempts in 20 years. Start with the detail that makes the lake something other than a gesture. Spencer has said publicly that in 20 years, there were 4 separate attempts to reach his sister's body, and that he saw off every one of them. 4. Not 4 rumors, not 4 trespassing teenagers photographed from a distance, but 4 occasions serious enough that the man responsible for the grave counted them and repeated the number out loud. Read against that, the water stops being sentiment and becomes infrastructure. There is no bridge because a bridge is a route. The mud is mentioned because mud slows a person down. Whatever else Althorp is, the island at the center of it was engineered by a grieving brother to be difficult, and it has held for 29 years. That is the context in which the phrase was written, and it is why it has done more work this past fortnight than any statement from any palace. Commentators who would never normally quote an earl's memoir have spent a week quoting that line back at Harry and Meghan. Words written about strangers with long lenses are now being pointed at a nephew and a nephew's wife, and the one man who could say which category they belong to has not opened his mouth. Subscribe now, because the answer to that turns on a single question of permission, and this script gets to it. 6 figures, and the day after the portrait. The week before the photographs appeared, a veteran Fleet Street Royal correspondent was asked on camera what a picture of Meghan and the 2 children back on British soil would be worth. He did not hesitate. 6 figures, he said, and reached for the benchmark he had lived through. The 1992 set of the Duchess of York in the south of France, which he put at £1 million. Hold that figure against what actually happened during the visit, because the British press got nothing. No airport shots, no long lens over a hedge, not one frame of the drive to Highgrove, where reporting indicates the meeting with the king lasted barely an hour under agreed conditions of no photographs and no interviews. A blacked-out vehicle, a private estate, 2 nights, several hundred miles of motorway, and not one usable frame reaching a picture desk. Even the tabloids conceded it had been done properly. So, a family said to be unable to move an inch in Britain without being hunted, flew in, crossed the country, sat down with the king, and left again, unphotographed. Privacy was available. It worked. The only leak in the entire fortnight came from inside the family itself, on a Thursday afternoon, by choice. Nobody hands over a 6-figure asset out of generosity. It happens when the picture buys something the money cannot, which makes the calendar worth reading carefully. Wednesday, the 22nd of July. The Prince and Princess of Wales release a portrait of Prince George for his 13th birthday, taken on the stairs at Kensington Palace. Perfectly ordinary, perfectly lovely, and the kind of image that carries a week of coverage. Thursday, the 23rd of July. 11 photographs go up from Montecito. One day. That is the entire gap. Much of the internet insisted the timing was engineered around a product launch, that there was jam or honey or wine somewhere in the mix. That does not hold. The lavender honey had gone on sale 3 weeks earlier and had already been and gone. The commercial explanation fails. In fairness, coincidence is not impossible. Families post holiday pictures in July, and no evidence has emerged that anyone in Montecito consulted the Wales diary. But the Sussexes have run their own communications for 6 years, and the idea that a date one day after a milestone royal birthday went unnoticed asks a great deal. There is a second timing detail that has been used against Meghan repeatedly, and only half of it is fair. Weeks earlier, briefings placed her as the parent most determined that no images of the children would be released. Critics read the carousel as a flat contradiction. The children's faces, however, are not shown in it. Whether that counts as protection or as what marketers call a curiosity gap is precisely where the argument sits. The man who opened the gates. Charles Spencer has run Althorp for 29 years as a private fortress with a gift shop attached. When Netflix approached about filming there for The Crown, he refused outright and said so publicly. He is not naive about what people will do to get near his sister's memory, and he has never pretended otherwise. He is also not the bystander. A fortnight of coverage has quietly made him. He owns the land. He controls access to the island. In the second week of July, he opened the gates and had them all to stay. And that decision cuts hard against the picture of him now being drawn. A man who spent 29 years keeping the world on the far side of a lake chose, in July 2026, to let his nephew bring 2 children across it to lay flowers for a grandmother they never met. The story circulating is that a condition was set beforehand: no cameras. Whether that came from the king or from the earl is unclear, and there is a hole in it that an American commentator was first to point out. No cameras means no crew, no van, no lighting, no sound engineer. Nobody, anywhere, said a word about a phone in somebody's back pocket. A phone went over that water. That much is not in dispute. The name nobody has. Consider what the Earl could do in a single sentence. 8 words would end it. They were my guests and I was glad. The trespass framing collapses, the borrowed phrase loses its target, and the story becomes what it may always have been, which is a man inviting his late sister's son and 2 grandchildren she never met onto his land. Instead, across 6 days, his own account has carried a black and white photograph of 2 children on a swing in 1966 and a pony called Teddy Tar in 1972. Nothing else? One royal commentator has made the only structurally sound point of the week, and it has been largely ignored. If the pictures were taken at Althorp, that required Spencer's permission. And if permission was given, it was permissible. No violation, no ambush, no camera smuggled past a guard. Clumsy, perhaps. Hardly a scandal. Which leaves the detail nobody has filled in. Not one outlet in 6 days has been able to say who held the phone. No photographer, no named friend, no member of staff, no Spencer. That is a remarkable gap in a story covered this heavily, and names of that kind tend to surface eventually. There is one more thing the Earl may be sitting on. A royal biographer has claimed that there is a program planned for next year, 30 years on from Diana's death, and that the photographs were taken with that project in mind. If any of that is close to accurate, then Spencer is not quiet because he is angry. He is quiet because he has not decided yet. The method, not the rule. The line all fortnight has been that the site is sacred and that Diana would have been appalled. It does not survive contact with the record. Start with the supposed rule. In September 2022, Buckingham Palace itself released a photograph of the late Queen's ledger stone at Windsor. The institution issued it. There is no ancient commandment about photographing a royal resting place. There is one specific arrangement about one specific island, and it exists because 4 people tried to reach a body. Then consider Diana. She cooperated with Andrew Morton through an intermediary and put her marriage into a book. She sat for Panorama and brought the roof down on the institution from inside Kensington Palace. She understood a camera better than anyone who has held that title and used one as an instrument against a family that had frozen her out. It worked, and it is the single biggest reason people are still discussing her 30 years later. The commercial argument does not sit cleanly either. In 1998, Spencer opened the estate to paying visitors, and Elton John criticized him publicly for it, calling the arrangement tacky right down to the merchandising of his sister's name. Whatever the rights of that dispute, the resting place has been fought over on commercial grounds before, and Meghan was not the first person accused of it. So, the charge may be aimed at the wrong thing. She did not break Diana's rules. She used Diana's method. The controlled release, a frame that looks accidental and is nothing of the kind. A picture that says what needs saying while the mouth stays shut. That technique was invented in Kensington Palace in 1992 by a woman who had run out of other options. And 34 years later, her son's wife is still running it. The service. Nobody photographed. There is a date that settles what the family itself understood about that ground, and it has been almost entirely absent from the past fortnight. On the 1st of July 2017, on what would have been Diana's 56th birthday, a small service was held at the graveside to rededicate it. William attended, so did Catherine. Harry was there, with 2 of the Wales children. the Archbishop of Canterbury conducted it. This was not a private family moment that happened to escape notice. It was a formal religious service involving the future king, his wife, his children, and the most senior cleric in the Church of England, held on the most emotionally loaded date in that family's year. Not one photograph of that day was released, not a single frame. No portrait went out afterwards to mark the birthday. No statement carried an image. It was arranged to be entirely private. It stayed entirely private, and nobody present appears to have needed the reasoning explained to them. Everyone who crossed that water in 2017 crossed it under the same understanding, and every one of them kept it. What makes it land is how ordinary the discipline was. No agreement was announced. No lawyers were involved. No statement warned anyone off. A group of people walked across, stood at a grave, and walked back. And the only reason the public knows it happened at all is that it was confirmed afterwards in words rather than pictures. 9 years later, the same path, the same flowers, the same family. Public by Thursday tea time. The flowers in his arms. Meghan is not in the photograph that caused all this. What is there is Harry, a 7-year-old boy, a 5-year-old girl, and 2 armfuls of flowers on a path his mother's brother made deliberately hard to reach. Harry knows about that bridge better than anyone commenting on it. He wrote about it in Spare, in his own words. The crossing was removed to give his mother privacy and to keep intruders away. He put it in print, and it was translated into dozens of languages, and he was paid for the explanation. He also stood on that exact ground in 2017, beside his brother, under an agreement every attendee kept without complaint. 9 years on, he walked the same path with a camera in the party. Every response since has been aimed at his wife. She posted it, she chose it, she cropped it, she captioned it, and all of that is true. It is also extremely convenient because it lets a grown man of 41 carry lilies down that avenue and arrive at the other end, a bystander in his own life. He was standing right there when whatever was agreed with his uncle stopped being kept. Nobody put the flowers in his arms. He is 41. He has spent 6 years describing himself as the member of that family who understands intrusion best. And he has built a public case on the idea that others made a living out of his mother. Whoever pressed the shutter, he was the adult on that island who had read the arrangement, written about the arrangement, and honored the arrangement once already. For William, this is something sharper than a dispute about taste. He grew up inside the wreckage of exactly this technique, watched what it cost at 12 years old, and spent his adult life doing the deliberate opposite at real personal cost. He has not commented. Given the history, the silence reads clearly enough. What Spencer still hasn't said. Everything roots back through Charles Spencer. His words supplied the language the critics are using. His land supplied the setting. His permission, given or withheld, decides whether there was any violation at all. And he has offered a swing in 1966 and a pony in 1972. There are 2 versions available, and only 2. Either he said yes and cannot say so out loud without owning everything that followed, because the moment he confirms he opened the gates, the fortnight of outrage becomes partly his. Or he said no and learned about it on Thursday alongside everyone else, and is far too well bred to admit in public that his instruction was ignored by his own family. Permission given and regretted, or permission never given. Both explain 6 days of silence. Neither is comfortable, and the difference between them is the entire story. The most quoted line of the fortnight belongs to a man who never intended it for this. Insane and ghoulish was written about strangers trying to reach a grave, not about family invited through his own gates. Until Spencer says which category last month's visitors belong to, that phrase stays in circulation, borrowed by anyone who wants it. There has been no bridge to that island for 29 years. Somebody got across anyway. So, which version are you going with? Did the Earl say yes and lose control of it? Or did he say no and get walked straight past? Tell me properly in the comments, because everyone gets read. Hit like and subscribe, because there is a great deal more coming this week. On Thursday, we go through all 11 of those photographs one at a time, including the 2 nobody has managed to place.